Hey guys, welcome back to Cheat Sheet Pros. Today is August 20th. It is Sunday Fun Day, and we are going to go through and take a look at some picks. I'm going to show you how I use the MLB cheat sheet because one of the questions that I always get asked is how did you come up with that play? What were you looking at? What did you see? So what I am going to do this morning is run through as quickly as possible and show you how I came up with some of the plays I posted. I'll also show you some of the cards that I did and some of the player props that I did find. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. If you're watching this video today, our cheat sheets are free on Thursdays. I post them right on the front page of the website. We do have a free Facebook group. The link is in the description. We also have a paid group where you get the cheat sheets every day. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I do is I open up the MLB cheat sheet and I go down here. You see all these tabs with all this fun information. I go to the betting board. So the first thing I want to do is find some teams that I want to bet on, and then I work my way back and look at pitchers, look at hitters, look at props. So you've probably seen the tutorial, but looking through here, it has a bunch of information on it. If you want to know exactly what the information is, you can watch the tutorial. We don't quite have all of this on the screen. As you can see over on this side, we have bullpen data, and then we have the bullpen rank over the last 2 weeks. That is key if you're looking at like a first five versus game line bet. So scrolling down here, the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at the pitchers, I'm looking at the last couple starts, and I'm looking at this XFIP. So when I see a drastic difference here in the green, that's a game that I want to look at. You can also look at our little custom advantage column right here. But flipping down here through the first game, going down a couple of games that jump out at me. One is Atlanta. So we're looking at this. Over the last 10 games, San Francisco's 2-8, and Atlanta's 8-2. So that's a game I probably want to look at. Now, looking at the Vegas projected runs, 3.6, 5.4, that means there's going to be a pretty hefty price to take Atlanta today. So you might want to parlay it or mix it with someone, but that's one way I tell what the price is. So looking here at Junis versus Fried, Fried's been good. He's been back. He's allowed 2 runs, 4 runs in his last 2 starts. Junis has not been bad, though. 4 innings, no runs, 7 Ks. And then 1.2, which he could have came out of the bullpen or been an opener. I didn't really look into it. And then I want to look and see how the teams are doing over here. So Atlanta, 6, 4, 2, 5, 11, 6. They're doing pretty good. San Francisco's kind of up and down. But again, this is just a game that I would look at and say, okay, based on the information here, Atlanta is a game I'm going to dig into. So I keep a piece of paper in front of my computer and I would write down Atlanta versus San Fran. So going on, we're going to scroll down here. I look at the last 10. I look at what the Vegas is so I can see roughly what that line would be. Pitchers, stats, last 2, and I want to see how a team's doing. So Hyunjin has done really good. He's got 9 innings with no earned runs, so he kind of jumped out at me. And you can see here Vegas has him about 4.6 to 4.9, so then that means Toronto's going to be a slight dog. They're 4-6 over the last 10 since he's 5-5, so pretty much about the same. But with Hyunjin's last 2 starts, I would be interested in a possible dog play on Toronto. Hunter Green hasn't been bad, but he has given up 5 earned runs in 11.1 innings. And then look at their run support, 3, 1, and 0 in 3 of the last 4 games, averaging 2.6 over the last 5. Bullpen-wise, Toronto has a really good bullpen. They're number 1 over the last 2 weeks with a 1.66. Well, you can't see that. They have the number 1 bullpen over the last 2 weeks with the 1.66 ERA versus the 11th bullpen. So Toronto is a dog play. I have not bet it yet, but that is one that would jump out at me. Flipping down through here, I don't want anything to do with Cleveland and Detroit. That doesn't really jump out. Here we have a big advantage on Pittsburgh, but both teams are 4-6. Borucki, I checked, he's just kind of an opener bullpen, 1 to 2 inning guy. So I try not to put the openers in the player log file because it takes longer for it to run. Dallas Keuchel is absolutely awful. I cannot stand that guy. You can tell here, 2.2 innings, gave up 6 earned runs, no Ks. But again, you can't feel good backing Pitt. Flipping down here, Mets, St. Louis, there's nothing that really jumps out at me here. KC and Cubs. So looking at this, 3-7, 5-5, not great. Total of 9.5. So I'm looking at this at an alt over. The reason is Jordan Lyles is awful. He's got a 6.30 ERA, an xFIP over 5, and in these last 2 starts, he's got 13 innings and 13 innings pitched, and he has allowed 10 earned runs. Now, I also like here that Kansas City, they've scored 4, 4, 4, 5, 8, 7. So they've scored 4+ runs in 6 straight games. So they're going to put some runs on the board. Both teams have a bad bullpen. Jordan Lyles is awful. So I like taking an alt over there and mixing it in with the parlay. So if you like Atlanta and they're minus 200, 225, you could do an alt total like KC Chicago over 6, over 7, over 8, something like that, a little less, and feel pretty good about it. So we're going to earmark this game and we're going to go take a look at it and dig into it. Coming down here, we have Texas, Milwaukee. What jumps out at me, Max Scherzer is on the mound. He's been phenomenal. In his last 2 starts, he has 14 innings and only allowed 1 earned run with 17 strikeouts. However, in 2 of the last 3, they've struggled to score any runs. Milwaukee's getting semi-hot after having a 3-game stretch of 0, 1, and 2 runs. They've scored 15 in the last 2 games. So this game didn't make my play. But it's one that I would want to look at for possibly a first 5 bet with Max on the mound versus Hauser. Hauser in his last 2 starts has allowed 3 runs and 4 earned runs, so I could see a first 5 here of this being, 2-0 Texas, 1-0 Texas. So a first 5 run line is one that would jump out at me if you want to dabble in there and take some action. But we're going to look at it. Chicago and the White Sox, this is a pitiful series. 3-7 for each team over the last 10 games. Here we have an advantage on Colorado. That's basically because of how many runs they have scored. Now, anytime a game is in Colorado, and if you're not familiar, the bottom team is always the home team where the game is at. With the altitude, stuff gets crazy. But what jumps out at me, if you're playing DFS today, Colorado has scored 11 and 14 runs in the last 2 games. Well, 11, 14, and 7. So they're averaging 8.6 over the last 5. So that's phenomenal. Cease is a great pitcher, but again, he's in Colorado at altitude, so he may or may not do well. I didn't dig into see what his stats are, but I think Colorado would be a worthy stack with how well they are hitting right now. Flexen, he's really been struggling. He's allowed 4 earned runs and 5 earned runs in his last 2. So if you combine those, that's 11 innings pitched and 10 earned runs allowed. So that might be a game maybe you look at an over. But again, White Sox don't really instill confidence with here they've scored 5-1, 3-5, 3-2 runs. Nothing really exciting there, but not a side I want, but I would stack Colorado in a DFS thing. And then looking at the Vegas line here, maybe a little dog play on Colorado just due to how many runs they have scored. Baltimore, this is the second game that really jumped out at me. 6-4 over the last 10, facing Oakland that's 2-8 over the last 10. We have Bradish versus Sears, and this little green mark is one thing that jumps out at me, which is the xFIP. If you're not familiar, I won't spend a lot of time on it, but everybody knows what the ERA is, your earned run average. Your xFIP is like what it is independent of certain fielding spots, errors. So think of xFIP as what the ERA should be. So here, they're both up a little bit, which is fine, but still, we have Bradish with a 3.82 versus JP Sears with a 5.07, so that's a drastic difference on the Baltimore side. And then when we scroll over here, I want to look at the bullpen. So here we're looking at the bullpen stats. We see 12th versus 25th, so we see Baltimore also has a better bullpen, so I want to rule out a first 5 game and feel okay going with a full game. Bradish over his last 2 starts has only allowed 2 earned runs total in his last, 11.2 innings pitched. That's pretty good against Seattle and the Mets, and they've scored 7 and 9 over the last 2 games, so they're semi-hot right now. They have 2 games, they've scored a crap ton of runs, they have a good bullpen, they have a good pitcher on the mound, and then looking at this 4.6 to 3.4, it's going to be a little higher line than what I want, but it's justified. JP Sears has an xFIP over 5. In his last 2 starts, he's only went 9 combined innings, and he's allowed 7 earned runs, and not a lot of run support, 2, 4, 8, 2, so they had 1 game where they blew up, but the other ones haven't really done much. So Baltimore is the other play that I want to earmark and take a look at. And then one of my favorite plays of the day down here, we get to the bottom, is Philadelphia over Washington. Now, Washington is 6-4 over the last 10. Philly is only 5-5, and you can see the sheet here has a 7% advantage on Washington. Now, I don't always follow the stuff that my sheet picks, but I want to tell you why I love this game and I love a first five. So first, let's look at the bullpens. So over here, each team has about the 6th bullpen. Numbers pretty decent across the board. So both bullpens are decent. So, you know, there's no advantage there of taking a first five or taking a game line over a first five. Now, look at these last 3 games. Philadelphia scored 12, 7, and 9 runs. So they had a kind of a dead streak, and then they've exploded these last 3 games. Washington's been doing pretty good. I'm not going to put them down at all. They've been 3+ and 8 and 10. They've also been scoring, so both of these teams are hot. Now, the difference for me is the starting pitching. We have Zach Wheeler, who is a freaking stud, and Trevor Williams, who is an absolute shitbag. So Wheeler on the mound, you're going to get 5 innings. He might give up 1 or 2 runs. That's ideally what's going to happen. So I like taking a Philadelphia first 5 run line. That means you're laying a half a run. So if Philadelphia is tied after 5 innings, you lose. They have to be up by 1 run or more, and the bet's over, you win. Now, we have a really good pitcher, Zach Wheeler. He's allowed 4 earned runs in his last 13 innings, so that's pretty decent. Trevor Williams on the other side is 5 and 7 on the year. He has an xFIP over 5, and here, once again, we see a drastic difference in the xFIP. And look at his last 2 starts. Only 4.1 innings, 5 earned runs against a horrible, horrible Oakland team who can't score. And then 5.2 innings against Philadelphia, who's up and down, but gave up 6 runs. Now, what's one thing that jumps out at you that I didn't mention? Have you caught it yet? You know? Look, take a peek, take a peek. Okay. So, Trevor Williams and Zach Wheeler, they each just faced each other. So when I was doing my write-up and I was looking at their past games, I'm like, crap, 2 games ago we had this. I think it was just flipped, but Trevor Williams faced Philadelphia and Zach Wheeler faced Washington. So Wheeler, this was his worst start of the last 6 or 7, 6 innings, 3 earned runs, 6 Ks. But Washington and Trevor Williams, he went 5.2 innings and gave up 6 earned runs. So roughly you could say they were about +3 in that first 5. So that is a game that I really don't even need to dig into it from there. That's one that I do like. So when we're looking at plays, I'm going to show you what I went ahead and posted up here. And this is always on Twitter, Facebook. Those are the first 2 places that I post stuff like this. My favorite play of the day is Philadelphia with Wheeler action, first 5 run line over Washington. I also like the Braves over San Francisco, and I like Baltimore over Oakland. So I'd say Philadelphia first 5 is my favorite play. Baltimore is my second favorite play. If you want to parlay those 2 together, you can. I will show you a couple of the bets that I have in here. Let me find where did I put these? I've got folders for absolutely everything on here. So let's look at some of the plays that I have. And where is one? All right. Oh, that's a little small. So my personal cards, I'm going to show you the bets I have. Writing with the mouse. Sorry. Plus 438 on this one. We have Max Fried, whatever you say his name, over 17.5. Bradish over 17.5. Royals. Lyles not to record a win. And Philly first 5 run line. Plus 438. I used my bonus and cranked it up. So that was the first play that I had. The second play that I went with, and we'll dig into these a little bit more. Let me blow that up for you. I went ahead, I took Braves money line for the game, Philly first 5, and I took this alt over 7 for the Royals game, and I got plus 340 on it, so I used that, especially with the free bet that I had. I did a little sprinkle here. I took Rangers and Baltimore. Just Rangers should bounce back, get a win with Max on the mound. And then I took the Orioles on there, put them together, got plus 130, so plus money wasn't bad. And then prize picks, I'll go ahead and show you this one. I typically do separate videos for these. My favorite 2 plays are up top here. Bobby Witt, Julio Rodriguez, they've been red hot, so I bet that one. And then I added these other plays in here just to kind of get a little more action, and we'll take a look at those as we dive into this. So that's the first thing I do when I'm looking at games is I come over here, I look at the betting board. Now I'm going to go over here to the main, and I'm going to flip through these games and see what I like. Now here is where we can dig into the games a little bit further and get some more information. So the first game we're looking at over here, look, San Francisco's been absolutely dreadful. They are 2-8 over the last 10 games, and Atlanta's been red hot. You know, they've won 8-2 over the last 10. They've won 8 of the last 9 games, with their one loss in the last 9 being this one-run loss to the Mets. Fried, pretty decent. June is pretty decent. You can flip down here if there's any BVP data. It's going to show. You can see the fantasy points over here. Bullpens, you can look at them 20th, 9th. That's not very much of a difference. And then what I always look at is the home road stats to make sure there's not a drastic split anywhere, which right now there's not. The second thing I look at are hits allowed. So you might have a pitcher that gives up, say, 3 hits, loads the bases, and then gets lucky and ends the inning. And then he does it again and he gets lucky. So he might have 1 or 2 earned runs, but he might have given up like 9 hits. So that's something to take a look at. So it does worry me a little bit. I slid Atlanta down just because he's got 2 8-hit allowed games in his last 4, but he did just come back from injury, so I don't know exactly if that was before or after. I didn't dig into it. I just slid the game down for me. And then over here you can see Junis. He's kind of, 1 inning, 3 inning, 1.2, 4. He's bouncing between the bullpen, coming out. So I do like Atlanta. I mean, they're red hot, but I did slide him down because of that information that did come up. Flipping down at some of these other games that we were going to earmark and look at. One of them is the over in this Kansas City game. Main reason, look at Lyles. He's allowed 6 and 4 earned runs in the last 2. Kansas City scoring at least 4 runs a game consistently. Chicago should be able to put up 4 runs without any hesitation. Looking at the game logs here, I love this little tab here. This is so key. So look at these hits allowed. 9, 7, 8, 4, 9. So we'll throw out Minnesota. He was at home. He had a good start. But other than that, 9, 9, 8, 7, that's a crap ton of hits allowed. And earned runs, 6, 4, 5, 5. That's a ton of earned runs. How do you not take an over there, or at least lean at an alt over? Hendricks has been good, but 7, 8, 8 hits allowed in 3 of the last 4. So that's a little concerning. Kansas City's been doing really well. So that's one of the reasons I liked a little bit of an alt over. You can see here the totals in the last 5 games averages 13.8 in Royals games and 11.2 in Cubs games. So I think Vegas has this up here at 9.5. So I don't mind taking this down to over 6, over 7, over 8, depending on what your risk profile wants to be. Now, flipping down at these other 2 games that jumped out, I'm just going to look at Colorado in case you're playing DFS. Look at this, 11-5, 14-1, and then they scored 7. And then if you're playing DFS and you want to flip down here, look at all this red. These guys, this middle of the order here has been red hot. Looks like McMahon, Rogers, Nolan Jones, Diaz. And then you can come over here and you can look at the rough stack prices. So you can get in this for about $4,300 per hitter, which is on the lower side. It's really good. So if you're stacking someone, don't mind doing a little DFS stack there. Again, this is not a game that I'm going to bet or take any action in. And let's flip down here. So these last 2 games, Baltimore jumped out at us. So let's take a look at it. Oakland, they've been absolutely awful. 1-7 over the last 8 games. And what jumps out at me is they've scored 2, 4, 8, 2, 5, 7, 2, 2. So they do have the ability to score some runs, but they do not have the ability to basically play any defense or have any bullpen. Baltimore, they're 5-2 over the last 7 games, so they've been really well, and you'll notice all of these games have been on the road. They've scored 7, 9 in the last 2, so they're doing pretty good. Bradish, Sears, huge difference. So we're going to flip down. We're going to take a look at this. So let me see. This is Oakland at home, so I'm going to look at Sears and look at his home road splits, see if there's a difference. We see these right here. You can see at home, it's about the same. It doesn't move a whole lot, so I'm not really too worried about it. He does have a few stats that are worse at home, but not terrible. But this bullpen is awful. 25th over the last 2 weeks. Just terrible. So even if he starts off good, I'd go game line on Baltimore. He should be able to get down there. And then check these last 3. 6, 9, 6 hits, 3, 4, and 2 earned runs. Not really worried about Sears. Bradish on the other side, we're going to look at his home road splits, which I didn't do before the write-up. Bullpen's decent, 12th, but nothing amazing. Looking at his stats, his ERA and xFIP for the season is both under 4. That's really good. He has a decent K9 rate, a low whip. you can see on the road his stats jump a little bit. ERA goes 218 to 397, but if you look at xFIP, it goes 406 to 362. So anything around 4, sub 4 is good, so I'm not worried about that. He actually has a higher K9 rate on the road that jumps from 7.4 to 9.3, so that is good for us. And you can see that's through 53 and 68 innings, so that's a good chunk of data. His whip is a little bit higher, so he gets a few more strikeouts on the road, but he does give up a few more hits and walks. And then his batting average allowed, which you can look at BABIP and change this, but he allows about a 249 on the road, so a little bit higher, but not terrible. Over his last 3 starts, I was really impressed. He's only allowed 5, 3, and 4 hits, and that was against Seattle, New York Mets, and Toronto, and 2, 0, and 3 earned runs, which isn't bad, so he's more than capable of locking this one down. Some of the bets you can do on that, you could take his over 17.5 outs. You could take Bradish to record a win. I think the difference is minus 110 to plus 120 in there. And let's go ahead and look at this last game. So Philadelphia, Washington. So here, Washington's been doing really good. They've won 6 of the last 8 games, and they've split the last 2 against Philadelphia. And Philadelphia's kind of doing their up and down. They won 4, they lost 3, won 1, lost 1, won 1. But we got Zach Wheeler versus Trevor Williams, and this should just jump out off the sheet and slap you right in the face. So here we have xFIP of 3.5 versus over 5. We have a whip of 1.1 versus 1.5. Wheeler's last 2 starts, he's allowed 1 and 3 earned runs, and then 5 earned runs, 6 earned runs. So I really like the Philly first 5 run line here. And then look at this BVP. So BVP is batter versus pitcher history. Typically you'll see 40 to 70 team at-bats, which you see here. I just total them all up so you can get an idea. 140 is probably one of the highest that you will see for a team to face a pitcher. So they are 44 out of 140, batting .314 with a 16% strikeout rate, which is microscopic. That is very, very low. And 15 home runs. That's phenomenal. Now, if you're playing DFS, one of the things I like to do, you can see this is a showdown slate due to the salaries on DK. But Schwarber, 12 of 40, he's hitting 300 with 6 home runs. He would be good to use. Bohm, I would probably fade. He's only 2 of 9. Harper, 3 of 12, 250, no home runs. Maybe you fade him, maybe you don't. Castellanos, 12-31, batting .387 with 2 home runs. He's definitely going to be in your lineup. 2 of 9, no home runs. 222, might use him, might not use him. Real Muto, 5 of 12, batting .417 with 3 bombs. You definitely want to use him. But this is kind of what I do if I'm playing DFS, and I can see the different stack options over here. But without looking at that, I like that from a betting side. You can see here we have 2 no-names that are not in our player logs, and then the other 3 hitters on the bottom half are just ice cold. Now, looking at the pitchers, we have, I'm not going to look at home road splits. This right here tells me he's just bad. A whip of 1.5 and then 1.6, 1.4 is just not very good at all. Looking at his recent starts, 6, 8, 7, 9, 7 hits allowed, 5, 6, 5, 4, and 2, he had a decent one there, earned runs allowed. So, has not been really good. He did just face Philadelphia, which we said earlier, 8 hits, 6 earned runs. Zach Wheeler, 3, 7, 5, 3 hits allowed, and then only 1, 3, 2, 1 earned runs allowed. He did just face Washington. He did give up 7 hits, 3 runs, but not terrible. So that's how we come up with that play. So that is how I go through and I find the sports betting. A couple other quick hitters I'm going to go ahead and go to. When you come over here and open up the hitters tab, if you're playing any type of prize picks, we have our custom algo over here. And these 2 hitters right here, you can see Julio Rodriguez, Bobby Witt. I said on Prize Picks, they're my 2 favorite play fantasy scores. The pitchers are decent, not great, but look at Julio, man. 21, 33, 36, 35, 23. He is absolutely on fire right now. And then same thing with Bobby Witt, 23, 21, 12, 24. I mean, they're just killing it. It's just unbelievable. So those are guys I like to hit. When you're looking at pitcher props are my #1 thing to play. I absolutely love looking into them. They're a lot of fun. Let me see if I can shrink this down. Okay, so if you see something like this player is usually an opener and they're just not in our player log database yet. So I looked up Boracchi or whatever his name is. He only throws 1 to 2 innings, bullpen, opener, so I didn't pull him in. All the other pitchers I did. Now, there is a hidden algo here in column O, and you can even sort this high to low. Now, without looking at the number, you just want to sort it high to low, and these are going to be your worst pitchers up top and your better pitchers at the bottom, or openers that just don't have a lot of stats. So these are the pitchers you want to target. So looking at this, it's going to say, hey, target Philadelphia against Trevor Williams, Cubs against Jordan Lyles. That's all you need. If you're doing player props for hits, Philly, Cubs, those are the two I'm going to go with. You can dabble down into some of these other ones. And if you're looking for DFS pitchers, look at these guys down here. These are ones that are going to be in the better setup. Now, one of the other things I love to do, I always talk about hits allowed because it's better than earned runs allowed because it's showing how many hits they are giving up. A walk, it's kind of a lot of variance there. But last 5 starts, so we're just looking at the last 5 times they've hit the mound. So usually that's about a month, maybe 5 weeks. A pitcher throws every 5 to 6 days, and these are going to be hits per innings pitched. So what's good about this is if it's someone like here, Boracchi, that is an opener, you see it's 0 because we don't have it. But if he's giving up, let's say 2 hits a game, that looks good, but maybe he's only throwing 1 inning or 2 innings. So this hits per inning pitched is going to give us a good number. Now, anything over 1.1 is not great. So those are the people that we are going to look at and target. Now, over here, you can also see this hits allowed. So Dallas Keuchel, he's only got 2 starts since he came back, but 6 and 8 hits allowed. That's someone you might want to look at. So maybe Pittsburgh is a sneaky stack, or maybe that's one where you do a same game parlay and you take Keuchel over 5 hits allowed, and then you take a couple pit guys to get a hit. Carrasco, he had an 8-8-10 stretch here, but 4 and 3 the last 2. That tells me he could be getting better. He's probably one I'm going to stay away from. Same thing here. He's been really good. 4-1-1-0. But he's only throwing 1 to 2 innings, so we're going to throw him out. Trevor Williams, now this should jump out at you. He's allowing 1.48 hits per inning in his last 5 starts. So look at his earned runs allowed. 5, 6, 5, 4, and hits 6, 8, 7, 9. Now we saw it on the other sheet, but if you're doing player props and you say, hey, who has the highest hits allowed, you can come over here and be like, okay, I'm going to take him over 6 hits or 6+ hits allowed on DK. That's a good spot. Flexen kind of the same way, 5, 8, 10. So he was doing really good, and then something changed, and all of a sudden he went way up on here. And I'll kind of just glance down these last 3 to 4 columns. So a couple that jump out at me is, so this guy, 9, 7, 8, the last 3. That's Jordan Lyles, so we'd want to look at some Cubs. 7, 5, 8, 8. That's Kyle Hendricks, so maybe look at some Royals. They've been doing well. And then if you look down here at some of these pitchers, like here, who do we got? So Hyun-Jin, his first start back, he gave up 9 hits. He got absolutely slaughtered. But then he gave up no hits through, I think, 4 innings. And then he gave up 2 hits. So he's getting much better. So if you're looking for like a sneaky DFS play, he's only 7,300 on DraftKings. He's not going to get a lot of strikeouts, but that could be someone that goes the distance for you. Another thing that I always look at is pitching outs. So I love to come over here and go pitching outs and then sort high to low. And then we're going to flip through these pitchers and we're going to kind of see, we're going to look at these. Now, I've already looked a lot of these up. So Zach Wheeler, what I'm looking at here, 21, 18, 18, 23, 21, 21, 18. That tells me on DraftKings if he's over 17.5 minus 175, I'm all over that. I'm going to put that in a solid parlay of 3 or 4. We are going to go with it. However, DraftKings does have him at 18.5 at plus money, so that's a little bit trickier. It's about 50-50, 60-40 that he goes over that, so that's one I would stay away from. But looking here at Bradish, now we like Baltimore. Bradish is on the mound. He's thrown 18, 17, 21, 23, 18, 22, and 18. So he was over 17.5, and you'll notice in one of the plays I win, I took Max Fried and Bradish both over 17.5 and got plus money. Here he's done it in, 6 of the last 7 games. Scherzer He's usually goes 21, but again, he's an 18.5 line, and that's kind of a tricky prop. Lyles, I'm going to stay away from just because Kansas City doesn't care. They don't need to win. They could keep him in there forever and let him just get slaughtered. Max Fried is the other one that I want to look at, and I took him over 17.5 just because we like him. In 3 of the last 4 games, he's gone the full 6 innings. He had 1 game he didn't, but that's one I think he has a high probability of. So that's kind of how I break this down and look at it. I make sure they're not going up against a solid team and whatnot. So pitcher to record a win. I'll come over here and I'll record the win. So here you can see Scherzer has 4 straight wins in a row. Erod's up and down. Fried, he has 3 wins in the last 5 starts. That's pretty decent. Dakota Hudson, interesting, has 3 wins in a row. And let me see, where is Lyles? So Lyles, you can see here, he did get a couple of wins, but he's going up against the Cubs today, which should get to him, so I like him not to record a win. But you can break this down for walks, home runs, hits allowed. Strikeouts are another one that we always do. We put the strikeouts here, and I sort them high to low, and then I'm going to kind of dig in these last 3 or 4 games. And what I love about this is you can see what the opponent strikeout rate is and the rank over the last 2 weeks. So here we could see Borucki, he's an opener, but he's got the best setup. But here, Max Scherzer, he's got 11, 6, 9, 7, 7, 6, 7 strikeouts. So you could say, hey, 6 to 7 is average for him. He's got a good matchup against a team that's striking out the 23rd most. And then these guys here have a lot of strikeouts, but they have really tough matchups. 7th, 2nd, and 1st on least strikeouts. So they are probably more likely to go under their line. And then here we have a run of players that are really good. 28, 26, 27, 29. Those players are in good spots for strikeout rates. Anyways, this video got way too freaking long. I'm going to try to get some more videos up as we get into Week 1 NFL season. I do have Labor Day week off to get the NFL cheat sheet up and running. So these are what we like today. Good luck, guys.